The kind of coaching I typically focus on is called vertical development or leadership maturity coaching. And what that does is basically help an individual who feels underwater or in over their heads when they're leading others to be able to transform not only their behaviors and not only their beliefs, but actually their fundamental identity. So for example, someone who is a manager and is at an expert stage of development or the skill-centric stage of development is focused primarily on how to follow the handbook for my particular expertise, how to develop all the knowledge that I can and share the knowledge with other people and be seen as the expert. And that works well for relatively stable operations that they actually have a procedure book and mechanical book. For example, assembly processes or hiring processes or customer service and sales, right? So you have this is the way that we do things, right? And the manager of a customer service team becomes so good at the skills a customer service representative needs to have. That's the idea, right? So they might go to their employee and say, you need to learn, check off all the things you need to learn to be able to use our CRM system. And then when you get on the call with a customer, I want you to be productive and focus on what they want and be able to share effectively what knowledge you have about a product that we offer, and then close the sale, right? Or close the inquiry. And there's a productivity targets for all the number of tickets to be completed, etc. But someone at this stage of development, when there's a lot of change or the environment there's a competitive marketplace and innovation is needed, someone at the expert stage of development or the skill-centric stage of development will feel in over their heads. They will consistently fail to perform according to what's needed, and the company would struggle to have success indicators. And so a leader at that stage, I would be coaching them in their maturity such that they could see they could become more and more aware of their automatic behaviors, and they can think critically about when the rule book or the handbook or the guidebook is useful and when it's not. And then go even deeper, looking at what are the beliefs that prevent me from acting differently? What are the beliefs that prevent me from reaching out to other departments for cross-departmental collaboration? What are the beliefs that cause me to take on the work myself because I feel like only I can do it well and I can't trust anyone else to do it well? Or the belief that I have to look good, I have to be the smartest person in the room, which actually prevents a company it prevents me as a manager from delegating, from empowering my team, from creating trust and safety in my team, and ultimately prevents the company from being resilient because it's dependent on one person to do all the work. And so a leader grows in their maturity when they start to realize, oh, okay, the company goals are to actually ensure training of cross-departmental training, or the entire team should be able to do all the things needed from beginning to end of the product cycle or the customer service cycle, for example. And maybe there's an emphasis on reinventing systems, reinventing processes so that they become more efficient, more effective at meeting customer needs, or more effective at creating the kind of culture that the company wants to create in terms of developing capacities, right? So a manager who is developing a self-determining stage, which is the stage after the skill-centric, which is also called the self-authoring stage, is going to be more interested in strategically building the capacities of their team to perform against the measures of the company's goals. And so this is where a method of coaching comes into play. This is where the manager starts to discover that they're not just the person that has all the answers or tells everyone what to do. This is often what a skill-centric stage of development is offering. When someone develops to the next stage, self-determining or self-authoring or achiever, they start to see the importance of developing their team and strategically aligning the capacities of each of the team members to meet the success performance metrics, the goals of the company. And so manager becomes coach. Manager manages also. There's deadlines, there's budgets, there's things to manage, right? But there's also a manager as leader, right? A leader is someone who envisions where we're going and is able to weave together people's stories to align with a common shared purpose. But a manager also needs to be a coach at this stage of development. And this is the capacity to become a coach at this stage actually comes online at self-determining stage development. And so the kind of coaching is performance coaching. Basically helping a subordinate, helping a direct report improve their performance, learn on the job, build skills, and problem solve, and have more ownership over the work that they do. One very well-known model of performance coaching is called the GROW model. And this was coined in the 1990s, 93, by John Whitmore, who wanted to find a concise model that managers can use to coach their employees in ways that is easy to remember and is quick to pull up and to use. So GROW stands for, G stands for goals, R stands for reality, O stands for options, and W stands for will. So G, goals, basically start off, this is in any given coaching conversation. Now, before we even get there, a manager as coach is wise to set up an agreement that this is happening, right? So a manager as coach needs to be able to communicate to their staff that, hey, I'm not just going to be telling you what to do, managing, supervising. I'm also going to be helping you learn, grow, and problem solve yourself. Because I want you to develop your skills. I want you to grow in your career. I want you to improve your performance. So there needs to be a clarity about what's going on. Otherwise, people walk into their work and there's an assumption that they're just there to do what they're told. And that model no longer works for most organizations. Most organizations are within an environment, a global environment, of a lot of uncertainty, where employees actually want to have more autonomy and meaning in their work. And also the companies need more employees to be able to respond and make decisions and solve problems without the manager always telling them what to do. There's a need for more lean, resilient, flexible organizations where more people are able to do the work and improve their performance. And so the GROW model, goals, so I'm sitting within a coaching conversation. And by the way, coaching conversations, as you could probably figure, are very different from supervisory conversations, right? Coaching conversations require a certain degree of trust, right? Of respect, of mutual sharing, transparency. People should be able to come to coaching conversations without fear that whatever they say is going to be used against them. Now, at the same time, there's a practical realization that a manager as coach is also still a manager, right? And so if they do things that are against the rules or against the policies or somehow violates an ethical boundary, they're also responsible for their team in holding people accountable and sharing certain information to people outside of the coaching container that is necessary for their job. And in a certain sense, coaching managers as coaches are not typical. They're not typical coaching conversations as a typical coach, pure coach would be, in that they're holding confidentiality. But a pure coach says, I will not repeat what you tell me outside of this coaching container, right? That's kind of a general coaching principle. But in any case, a certain degree of trust, equality, rapport, transparency is required. So G stands for grow. G stands for goals. And so a coaching conversation would be about, what are your goals? What do you want? What are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to improve the productivity on the warehouse floor? Are you trying to hire 3 new employees in the next 2 months? Are you trying to increase the compliance of expense reports being submitted? Are you trying to improve your tickets completed as a customer service associate? Are you trying to improve the number and the response rate of your tickets? Goals here it's really helpful that they're measurable, but they don't have to be. They can be reportable. So, for example, a goal might be, I want to be able to speak up more in meetings. Okay, that's a goal. I'm going to speak up more in meetings, more often in meetings. And so you could say, well, that would be every meeting you speak up, right? Goal. Or it could be people at the meeting report that you have offered more ideas about something, right? In any case, the goal, where are we headed? R, reality. Okay, where are you headed now? Where are you now? What is actually happening? So what do you normally do in meetings? Well, I sit back or I take notes or I ask questions, right? Okay, that's where you are now and where you want to be. The G, the goal, is I want to speak up more in meetings, right? Or in reality, the productivity percentage is at X, right? I complete 10 tickets, customer service tickets per day, for example. That's where I am right now. Or it goes on and on. So what's the reality right now? Okay. O stands for options. So what are your options right now? Well, I could, and also what are the options in the reality step? It's also about what's happening now. Well, I get distracted and people get there's too much happening at once, or I get too distracted by other people talking, and it's hard to focus on my tickets as a customer service representative. Or what's the reality right now? Well, people don't understand the expense report submission process, or the spreadsheets are a little bit tedious, and people always respond with questions, and there are always mistakes or something like that, right? Or on the work floor, it's the scheduling is kind of messed up, such that people are actually too focused and fixated on one area, and so when they're gone, when they're out sick, there's no one else that can do their job as well as they can. And how do I improve the scheduling? So that's it. So options are, okay, well, let's see. And the GROW coaching framework is asking people. So it's actually simple. And the coach, in this case, doesn't have to speak that much, can actually be the one just asking most of the questions. So they might speak 20% of the time, whereas the coachee or their subordinate speaks 80% of the time. So, well, what are some ways that you can find more focus? Or how might you improve your productivity? Or is there any kind of meetings where you can speak up more comfortably? So it's a lot of asking questions, this kind of performance coaching, right? You're brainstorming ideas or options for how to proceed. And then the last step, W, stands for will, or what will you do, or who, what, where, when, why. Who will do what, where, and when, not why. That's the last step of the conversation. So before the end of the conversation, it's question be something like, okay, so based on everything we talked about, what is one way that you can move towards that goal? What is one option that appeals to you? Who is the person that you can reach out to request support to do this thing? When might you be able to complete a new training process for your team on the production floor? Or what other kinds, when will you be able to transition the expense reporting system from spreadsheet to online portal? So that's the final step. Basically, it's a cyclical thing. It's not like you've gotten somewhere and you've finished. It's like every coaching conversation should really basically have these elements in it. And they don't always happen in order, but they should always happen in terms of performance conversation. And so then you keep monitoring progress. And when a grow coaching conversation recurs, it is iterative, it's experimental, it's always improving. And the coach who is the manager as coach, is able to, over time, empower their team to think critically about situations, to solve problems, to develop their own capacities and skills. And also, what ends up happening is it inspires motivation. It actually motivates employees based on an intrinsic joy of solving problems and getting better and learning and growing and improving and meeting goals, versus the traditional approach, which is basically, I do it because you tell me to do it, which doesn't work anymore. It just doesn't work. So that's the GROW model. And I'll just make a small point here that the GROW model is for performance coaching. It's not for everyone all the time. And again, it's also ideal for people at certain stages of development. Earlier stages, it's really hard for people to be able to do this kind of thing. Because, like I said, for skill-centric leaders, their emphasis is on looking good, being knowledgeable and skilled, and kind of holding their capacity as something that they're really good at. And a skill-centric leader often has a harder time fully being vulnerable and open and letting possibilities emerge. There's a set way to do things. And unless their identity as a skill-centric leader is that managers are good, as a good manager, as an expert manager, I am good at coaching my employees. Unless they have that mindset, then they'll defer to just their specialization. So it's another sense, in some sense, you can train managers at any stage of development in any of these skills, but some of them will take to them more easily than others. It's just what happens. And later stages of development have more of a capacity to engage in the messy areas and the unknowns and the questioning and the learning processes that the GROW model actually enables.